Hi, this is Sam Weigel with V1 Rotate, and this week we have a very special episode with Flying Magazine's own Dick Karl. Welcome, Dick.
Thanks, Sam.
Today we're going to be flying from Austin to Tampa in Dick's Citation jet, and we're going to talk about what it's like to switch to a flying career later in life. I gotta say, this kind of jet flying is brand new to me. Like, this is kind of foreign. I think no dispatch release.
No.
No gate agents. No flight attendants other than, well, that might be me. So basically, we just go whenever we want to go, huh?
Well, you gotta take the covers off and pre-flight the airplane. There's that part.
Awesome. All right, let's go. Course start, battery switch, Matt. Standby flight display.
It's on. Power.
So, I met Dick through our mutual Scribblings for Flying magazine, and I've enjoyed Dick's writing for a long time, and after I started my Taking Wing column in 2013, Dick reached out and we began correspondence. We even hung out on a couple of my Tampa overnights, and I got to fly with Dick in one of his previous airplanes, which was a Piper Cheyenne.
It was, yeah.
So, anyways, Dick, would you mind telling everyone a little bit about your column?
You know, when I moved to Tampa, I fell under the spell of a famous newspaper journalist. He won a Pulitzer Prize, and I asked him if I could write something for the newspaper. And he said, well, do you know how to write? And I said, I don't know. He said, well, I'll tell you what. You write something, and I'll tell you whether you can write or not. So I started writing for a local newspaper. And then one time I submitted a article to Flying Magazine. Well, Mac McClellan was the editor. And it was an article about the similarities between flying and surgery, which was my primary life. And Mac paid me $500 for it and put it in Flying Magazine. I've been reading Flying Magazine since I was 0. And I appeared in the same magazine as Len Morgan, who was my hero.
Yep.
And I went, oh my goodness, this is amazing. But Mac, I see you have these columnist guys. How about I get a column? And he laughed. He said, well, you know, a lot of people have one good idea and they polish it and polish it and polish it and they send it in and we publish it. It's great. But you got to come up with an idea once a month.
Yep.
So I went to my mentor and I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, you're going to send him something once a month till he gives up.
Right.
And I did. Everybody else in the magazine worked for an airline or was in publishing for aviation,
right.
Was a photographer in aviation. I was the only guy who was like the people that read the magazine. That is to say, they had a day job to support their airplane habit.
Yep.
And that was, you know, so I sort of, you know, and then as I got older and had a little bit more coin, then I was able to get nicer and nicer airplanes, and then occasionally there'd be some kickback about that. People would be like, you know, jealous or whatever.
Yep.
And Mac said, no, man, it's like, look, this is the story of people who want to have airplanes. They aspire to, whether they want to get a Kodiak or a Citation, they want to get a better and better airplane, and you represent that, and your job is to be the rich, obnoxious jerk.
Right.
That I can do.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, then I got a Cessna 340. Oh my God, all those engines, and you had to be in the center line when you taxi because you don't want to hit anything. Wow, that's an incredible thought. And it morphed into burning some Jet A with a Cheyenne turboprop, and then at age 68, I decided that although I had some type ratings, I wanted to be a full-time professional pilot. And that's when I got hired by Jet Suite, and that was a whole other chapter of my life. So the readers basically over 20 years got to live that evolution, if you will.
Yeah.
And I can't possibly explain how rewarding it was.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. I always wanted your job in a sense, but I had this other love, and the pay was good.
Yep.
So I couldn't quite quit being a cancer surgeon in order to start off at Endeavor. But I could I could fly 135, but I knew I had to do it. It was before the pilot shortage, so it was a little difficult to get a job.
Yep.
I applied to a couple places. One of them sent me a rejection, like on the same millisecond. I was like stunned. And I knew somebody at that organization, and I called them and I said, "Well, I got the hours." And they went, "Aren't you the surgeon that lives in Tampa?" I go, "Yeah." "Don't you have a twin-engine turboprop?" "Yeah." "Aren't you flying a Learjet on the weekend?" "I am." "Aren't you making a lot of money?" "Yeah." "Well, why in the world would you want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for 8 days in a row and make $29,000 a year as an FO for us?" They didn't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Your career in medicine, I know a little bit about it. That it's a pretty long, successful career. You end up becoming one of the nation's leading cancer surgeons.
I'm glad you think that. I don't know if anybody else does, but the fact was that doing cancer surgery seemed to me to be very of immediate import. You're not doing cosmetic surgery. You're not doing stuff that's trivial. It makes a big difference to these patients if you can guide them through a difficult situation, make them better, and hopefully have them live a long time afterwards. The satisfaction of that is akin to breaking out at 200 feet, and there's the runway right there.
Yep. Yeah.
And I really loved being a surgeon. I mean, it was exciting, interesting, compelling, never trivial.
Now, you were a pilot pretty early on in your medicine career, correct?
I went to California after my first year of medical school, and I got a job working at the Cardiovascular Research Institute, and I discovered a flight school at Oakland Airport, and I went over there after work every day. Now, it turns out that if you turn on the television, you'll find that the summer I was out there was called the Summer of Love in San Francisco, and I missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
I could have known a lot of really cute girls and smoked a lot of reefer, but I was at the airport, and I missed it. I just totally missed it. But I came back to medical school, and then I had almost no money, and if I was going to do any flying, I'd go out to Teterboro and rent a 172. And in those days, there was no Class B. You could take off at night, fly down the Hudson River, fly back to Teterboro and land, and do it again like 4 months later when you got the $25 to do it again the next time. So there wasn't a lot of flying in my future until I got drafted. And when I got drafted, I fortunately was not sent to Vietnam. It was during Vietnam. And I was sent to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I was assigned to an emergency room stint at night. So during the day, I could do other things, and I got a job as a surgical assistant at a local hospital, which allowed me to make money, a lot of it. Seemed like a lot. I got a Musketeer.
Oh, okay.
2-4 Tango Delta. Oh my goodness, I was owning my own airplane, and I've had an airplane ever since.
Yeah, it's essentially your life as a pilot has paralleled your professional career all the way through.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed reading, especially your pieces about the intersection between aviation and medicine. And one book that I really enjoy that you wrote in 2003, Across the Red Line, Stories from the Surgical Life. I recommend that to a lot of people and to a lot of pilots, even though it's mainly about medicine, but you do talk about the intersection with aviation there. Have there been things you've been able to take from medicine and apply to your flying, or vice versa?
There's a lot more that I took from aviation and applied to medicine, which has to do with basically checklists and call-outs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variability in medicine. For instance, I did a lot of operations on the pancreas, which are complicated, and one of them's called the Whipple procedure.
Yeah.
And some surgeons at my hospital would take 8-9 hours to do a Whipple, and it would only take me 4. And I thought, maybe I'm leaving out some steps or something. Why is it half as long? And it turned out it was because the preparation was different. Because at the beginning, we'd have a briefing about what we're going to do, what kind of equipment we're going to use. And that meant we didn't have to send people out of the operating room to go find equipment that hadn't been discussed prior to we got started.
Yep.
And so it wasn't me, it was my relationship with anesthesia and my relationship with the nursing staff that was just put us all on the same page.
Essentially bringing CRM into the operating room. Yeah. After the flight, Dick and I headed back to his beautiful Tampa waterfront home to make some martinis, sit on the dock, and talk more about his transition from cancer surgeon to Part 135 pilot at the age of 68. However, since this episode is already getting long, I've decided to split it into 2 parts. Join me here at flyingmag.com next Friday, November 25th, for a special bonus episode, Flying and Talking Late Life Career Changes with Dick Karl, Part 2. Thanks for watching, and as always, for more great content for new and aspiring professional pilots, look for new V1 Rotate episodes every first and third Friday of the month.